Domestic violence. Chances are you know of a loved one, friend, or person in your community affected by it. According to the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence, 1 in 4 women and 1 in 5 men will become victims of abuse at the hands of their partners during their lifetime. Prince George's County is putting the issue in the forefront. The Maryland Network Against Domestic Violence shows that the county is #1 when it comes to partner abuse-related homicides. In the first quarter of 2016, 8 residents were killed during a domestic violence incident. Nashante Davis and her daughter Chloe were victims.
Nashante was a very bubbly, loving person. She loved everybody that she came in contact with, regardless as to who you were, what your position was, what you did. She just loved everybody, and everybody loved her as well.
But her loving spirit and personality were abruptly ended after Nashante Davis and her 2-year-old daughter Chloe were found shot to death outside of their townhouse in Fort Washington on February 2nd, 2016. Nashana Turner recounts that dreadful day she learned her sister and niece were killed.
We kept Chloe while my sister worked, so she's usually at my house by 6:45 at the latest. And time had come around, she didn't show up, so my aunt called and said something was wrong and she needed me to get to the house where my sister lived. So pulled up, and you can imagine the scene.
Days later, police arrested Chloe's father, Damon Boswell Johnson of Forestville, for their murders. The 25-year-old confessed that he was angry that he was ordered to pay $600 in monthly child support payments. Turner says she and other family members were shocked after learning he committed the crime.
Very first thought of mine, I had no idea who was involved. I thought it had to be random, because knowing my sister, nobody would do anything like this to them. So it had to be a robbery or a random act. I never initially thought that this would be the case.
It is not uncommon for others like Chloe to become the indirect victims of the abuser. Jalissa Walls-Harris and Tarika Jones were stepsisters. Investigators say 30-year-old Kevin Reynolds, Jones's ex-boyfriend, fatally shot both women inside a Chevrolet apartment in March. You may also remember 14-year-old Keshawn Mason, who was stabbed to death while trying to come to his mother's defense as her live-in boyfriend allegedly assaulted her in 2015. And who could ever forget the Beltway sniper attacks of 2002? John Allen Muhammad and his accomplice Lee Boyd Malveaux went on a shooting spree, indiscriminately killing 10 people across the D.C. metro region and injuring 3 others. But it was Muhammad's wife who was the #1 target. We now bring you her story, Mildred Muhammad, in her own words.
I am Mildred Muhammad. I have become an international speaker on the issues of domestic violence. I came to be about that by my ex-husband, who was John Allen Muhammad, the DC sniper. Most people don't know that that whole situation was a domestic violence child custody issue. Law enforcement stated that I was the target, and the theory was he was killing innocent people to cover up my murder so that he could come in and get custody of our children. It wasn't in our relationship until after he came back from Desert Storm, and he was diagnosed with PTSD. I noticed that he had a significant change in his behavior when he returned. Prior to that, he was jovial, life of the party, everybody wanted to be around him. He was a really fun person to be around. But when he got back, he was distant. He didn't want to engage in conversation. He was isolating himself, but the only person that he would communicate with was our son, John Jr. I received a lifetime restraining order, but we had to have visitation with our children. So one weekend on a visitation, he took them. He didn't bring them back. Took them out of the country to Antigua. It was 18 months before I saw them again. I had to go through an emergency custody hearing And once I got the children back, I came to Maryland and I hid here. I had already gotten my divorce, October 6, 2000. Washington State just passed a law stating that I could leave the state of Washington without telling the abuser where I was going, and I would not be charged with kidnapping. And that's how I left. He went to that same court, told them I kidnapped the children. They did a skip trace, found me in the DC area, and told him. He went to his best friend and said, I found Mildred, she's in DC, I'm gonna go get her. In the midst of the shootings, that best friend called the FBI and said, I don't know anything about your case, but you may want to look at John Muhammad. His ex-wife is in the area and he may be there to hurt her. I was so scared. I didn't go anywhere. I went to work, I came home. I would check the rooftops. I would check the levees. I didn't tell people. I didn't have friends because I didn't want to be responsible for their lives. So nobody knew. When the shooting started in 2002, the profilers told us to look for 2 Caucasians in a white box truck. So there was no way I would connect them, the description, with John. So I had no idea that it would be him. When it first happened, I secluded myself and my children because I needed to heal or help my children to heal. That was my primary focus at the time. And then once they were okay, then I asked them if it was okay that I would go out and help other women or victims by talking about their dad. And they say, Mom, as long as you tell the truth, then we're okay. Some victims or people feel that victims will never heal from the abuse that they suffered, and that's not true. It's a long journey, it's a painful journey, but ultimately you can get over it. I did.
What does domestic violence look like? When we return, we'll talk to local experts and survivors who will answer this question and more. Stay with us.
Of pale green and gray, nowhere in the suburbs, in the cold light of day. There in the midst of it, so alive and alone, words support like bone, dreaming of Mercy Street, where you're inside out, dreaming of mercy.
What this place needs is better graduation rates.
What this place needs is less childhood obesity.
What this place needs is free help with taxes.
What this place needs is healthy breakfast.
What this place needs is fitness programs for kids.
What this place needs is early readers.
What this place needs is mentors for teens.
What this place needs is people to join us. What this place needs is you. To donate or volunteer, go to unitedway.org.
What behaviors in a relationship qualify as being abusive? If the answer were so simple, domestic violence would be easier to detect. But as we've learned from our experts and survivors, the abuse is non-discriminatory. It crosses every racial, gender, and economic line, and sometimes the non-physical scars run deeper.
A domestic violence victim can be anyone. I've met with a wide range of people, a lot of different professions, a lot of different status.
Carolyn Mulligan is the domestic violence coordinator at Prince George's Hospital. Her role entails meeting with patients who doctors and nurses have identified as possible abuse victims.
Have you been hit? Have you been slapped? Have you been choked? Then people start saying yes, and they might identify themselves as a victim.
Sophie Ford is the director of the county's Family Crisis Center. She says domestic violence is hard to identify.
I think that's one of the most challenging things for people. There is no look in terms of what it could actually look like when it's being done, and there is no look in terms of what a victim will look like. It really is, and I tell people all the time, it's an equal opportunity destroyer.
White, black, Latino, it doesn't matter, it is happening. We find that it's reported less often, for example, in Latino communities and in some of the immigrant communities, because there are grave concerns about involving the criminal justice system, where you may potentially have, for example, undocumented residents who may be concerned about, if I go there, will this mean I'll be deported?
Domestic violence isn't always a slap or a punch.
The abuse I suffered was not physical at all. 80% of victims don't have physical scars to prove that they're victims. The first assault to domestic abuse is a verbal assault.
It can also look like financial abuse, where a person is the primary breadwinner in their family and they're withholding earnings from a person, or they use the shelter or food that they provide or clothing that they provide to keep a person under control.
There were incidents where he crashed into the garage not once but 3 times. He made the house unlivable, where it was uninhabited for me to even stay there when he came by, and bust all the toilet tanks, turned all the water on, flooded the home where I couldn't even live in the home. So I had no choice but to leave.
And psychological and emotional abuse can really look like where people are being verbally demeaned and really put down day to day, so that their self-worth is so low that they believe that they're not worthy of love, not capable of being loved, and really stay in this relationship because they feel like no one else will want them.
Domestic violence knows no age boundaries either. Some local and national organizations are raising awareness about abuse in the young population in hopes of breaking the cycle before it's too late.
I kind of just came up here to play basketball, and they introduced it to me, so I figured why not try it out.
14-year-old Emmanuel Jameson wasn't the only one of his peers who simply came out to the Oakcrest Community Center for a typical night of recreational fun. But soon, he and others were encouraged to attend the Capitol Heights Police Department Teen Violence Summit. The event brought in a room full of parents and children as abuse survivors spoke about the importance of healthy relationships.
Domestic violence program we started 2 years ago. We go into our area schools. We talk to the kids about how to have safe relationships and see the signs of bad relationships up front. We have to break the cycle, so we start as low as possible with the grades to try to teach them how to interact with each other, how to keep their hands to themselves, how to respect each other as individuals.
In general, teens understand what domestic violence is.
Domestic violence to me is when you have a relationship and somebody in the relationship is getting beaten on or treated wrong and they can't get out.
But some are unaware of how massive the problem is for young people.
It can affect children, but it morely happens with adults.
A lot of times people don't understand that our youth are being, abused. They don't feel that they can talk to even their parents, let alone adults, counselors, teachers, and then they talk amongst their peers. But that's not getting the best advice. For the most part, it's like the supporting cast to an actor and an actress.
The fact is, 1 in 3 young people between the ages of 12 and 24 will experience dating abuse, exceeding the adult statistics. Lynn Twyman is a domestic violence counselor. She says more education on the subject needs to be taken into the classroom.
When we go to school, we learn about math, science, history, English, but we're not necessarily being taught on a regular basis about healthy relationships, how to effectively communicate. What does controlling behavior look like?
Unfortunately, for some adolescents, domestic violence is not a foreign topic.
You'd be surprised. A lot of them have stories to tell about what they've seen and what they've experienced themselves, because sometimes it's learned behavior to see it inside their own households. They're not sheltered. They know exactly what's going on in their homes, in their community, and they want help. They want ideas. Some of the stories we heard from some of these young kids is amazing how they started these relationships so early. That's why we're trying to go to a middle school, because they have these relationships, and we need to let them know how to have healthy relationships.
Can I ask you a personal question?
Yes.
Have you started dating already?
Yes.
Okay. And so tell me about your relationship and how do you treat the special person in your life?
Well, we recently started dating, so the first thing I did, we went out, got something to eat, went to go see a movie.
Calissa Jacobs is the senior director of Break the Cycle, the national organization that brings awareness of youth dating violence.
We believe that the age of 12 is about the point where you start really transitioning between I have a good friend and they're very interesting to me, to you start having romantic feelings for them. And usually at about that time is the point where the romantic feelings can turn unhealthy if they're not carefully worked with and coached around how to have healthy interactions. We go all the way up into 24 because there's some new brain development research that's out there that says young people are still developing the core pieces of the brain functioning and development activities up until the age of 24.
Jacob says young people may experience more cyber abuse than adults, but otherwise the signs are the same.
It looks about the same, actually, as a person who's in their 20s. If it was something like cigarettes, and some statistic came out that said 1 in 3 young people are dying from cigarette abuse, the whole nation would be up in arms about it. And so we want the country to really be talking about this as a health-related issue, because that's what it is. There's long-term dramatic health impact from being abused and surviving abuse. Most people who are survivors or victims of abuse just want the abuse to stop. That's the #1 thing they want.
When we return, we'll speak to legislators and law enforcement officials on what's being done to end domestic violence on a state and local level. Stay with us.
Teen dating violence is a human rights violation
that happens in every city,
in every town,
and every neighborhood.
Teen dating violence does not discriminate.
Teens who experience dating-related violence have a higher risk for depression, poor academic performance, poor decision-making related to drugs and alcohol,
and may be more likely to contemplate or attempt suicide.
We want to do something about it.
We want to do something about it. We are a group of graduate social work students from Wheelock College,
working together to reduce teen dating violence in Massachusetts.
Between now and May 6, 2013, we're on a mission.
We are on a mission. On a mission.
To partner with teens,
parents,
communities,
organizations, and state agencies to broaden relationship and violence education.
We are brave.
It's our goal to hear your voice, raise awareness,
and create an online resource to help reduce teen dating violence.
Join us on our mission.
And together we can make a difference.
We are
Adia,
Megan, Courtney, Maya,
Kyle, and Dave.
And together we are brave.
Domestic violence has been a growing topic in Annapolis. Lawmakers on both sides of the aisles have pushed for legislation to help protect victims. There have been some obstacles along the way, but some victories as well. Angela Alsobrooks is the Prince George's County State's Attorney. She and her team have prosecuted domestic violence-related cases all too often.
What we see more likely than not is the traditional violence, which is a male perpetrator and a female victim. Now, we have seen cases where the men have been victims as well. We recently had a case where a woman ran over her husband in her truck as he ran away from her. But the majority of what we see would have men as perpetrators and the women as the victim.
Victims like Rhonda Santini, who we met earlier this year in Annapolis. She and several other Marylanders were lobbying for House Bill 1396. The proposed measure would have expanded the definition of domestic violence in the state to encompass harassing behaviors and destruction of property.
Abuse has to stop. And I'm just hoping with this bill, the next step would be the accountability of abusers, because that's really where the buck has to stop.
But HB 1396 didn't pass by the end of the 2016 General Assembly session. The bill's sponsor, Delegate Angela Angel, is devastated that it didn't draw enough support.
You know, I'm still advocating for it. I'm still talking with fellow legislators about it. One of the supporters and the original person that originally did the language for the bill in 2005 and who gave me the language last year didn't support the bill this time around. And I've asked multiple people, well, what happened? You know, and they said, well, we wanted to work on the language. Well, why didn't you offer any amendments?
As a domestic violence survivor, Angel knows firsthand how important such legislation is for victims.
And my marriage had at one point escalated into physical violence. After a while, my husband did leave and we were separated. And at a point, he began to constantly call, text. He was calling my job. He would threaten if I didn't listen to him, berate me. You know, he would send me text messages threatening to contact my workplace, threatening to contact people that I associate with, people that I work with, other fellow public officials. I went to court and, you know, explained to the judge what was going on. And he looked at all of the records I had. You know, I'm an attorney. I had plenty of records. I had plenty of evidence. And he said, this is really a shame. I feel very sorry that you were going through this. However, harassment is not one of the reasons that I can give you a protective order.
One bill in Annapolis that indirectly benefits domestic violence victims did pass this year.
We were successful earlier this year to increase the penalty for second-degree murder, for example. This was huge for us. It took us probably at least 3 years to go in to testify to change the penalty from 30 years to 40 years. This was a big deal for us because most of our second-degree murder cases are domestic, where juries may not find that it was premeditated, but instead would find that the violence caused the person to snap. For example, they may find that this wasn't premeditated, but it was second degree instead. If you're sentenced even to the maximum of 30 years and 15 years, you're eligible to be out walking the streets again. So we wanted to make sure that we were able to get more and more time for those kinds of offenses.
Don't go away. Our special continues. We'll tell you about an annual Prince George's event that is putting the spotlight on domestic violence. Stay with us.
After 1 or 2 drinks, my boyfriend can't stop drinking until he drinks too much. It scares me, but I don't have the money to see a counselor or a therapist about it right now. The more I think about my boyfriend's drinking, the more depressed I get. He's charming, handsome, and smart in so many ways, but when he drinks, I don't even know him. A friend of mine suggested I try AlAnon family groups. She said it doesn't cost anything. There are no dues or fees for AlAnon. Donations are completely voluntary. At first, I was afraid to go to AlAnon. I felt like a fool to care about somebody who can't stop drinking. AlAnon helps a lot. The members know how I feel and what it's like to love somebody who's totally out of control. Is someone's drinking troubling you? You might be surprised at what you can learn at an AlAnon family group from people just like you. Call 1-888-4-ALANON or go to alanon.org.
One out of every 4 women are victims of domestic violence. Domestic violence doesn't have a face, an age, a race, or a gender. Breaking the silence could save a life, including yours. For help and counseling in Prince George's County, call 211. Stop the silence, please. You may know that the Prince George's Sheriff's Department is responsible for executing peace and protective orders issued by the court for victims of domestic violence. Well, the office also engages in community awareness activities and events to help end the silence around abuse.
From dusk into the evening hours, residents and county officials came out in support of Purple Light Nights.
It's kind of a take on National Night Out. As opposed to a regular light bulb, we ask every resident, every citizen, to take a purple bulb, put it on their porch or in a light that's visible to the outside, and put that purple light on to say that they're in this effort with us to overcome domestic violence.
Since 2014, the event has become the official kickoff to Domestic Violence Awareness Month in Prince George's.
We started thinking many years ago about this issue and the challenge, and the big challenge was the silence, that people weren't willing to really speak about it. Our community and the nation kind of looked at it and they said this is a family matter, and so people were being abused, harmed, and hurt.
People like Penny Nicholas. She's a survivor in more ways than one.
I was somewhat hesitant to come and wear this shirt because it does stand out and it does speak about who and what I am. And I came again tonight, even though I'm not feeling well, because I am a 2-time breast cancer survivor, open heart surgery survivor, a survivor of domestic violence. But I came out tonight because what is killing me is the domestic violence.
Although the event puts a spotlight on domestic violence abuse in the county each October, Sheriff High and his team work around the clock to make sure residents are kept safe year-round.
Domestic violence is a national, perhaps world issue, and so certainly it impacts Prince George's County. My goal is to get to no incidents of domestic violence in our community. But right now that's a challenge. Even though we've done a significant number of things as a county to raise awareness about this issue and the resources that are available, there are still many people who don't know. So just like you with your television station and all of our media and others to help us raise the awareness and share information as often as we can with our citizens so that no citizen is unaware that resources are available and they don't have to live in a circumstance of hurt and pain.
It is considered a one-stop shop to help victims navigate through the various domestic violence resources from A to Z. The Family Justice Center, located in Upper Marlboro, is giving survivors a way out of their situation.
June 9th, 2016. Dozens of residents, state and local officials came to Upper Marlboro for the grand opening of the Prince George's Family Justice Center. The initiative was 7 years in the making.
The thing about it with most services here in the county and probably around the country, they're not in one location. You may have a job that you would potentially have to leave work or take off work to go and access these services. It makes it very difficult. And what happens for many people, they get frustrated, they give up, and they end up right back where they were.
The center is designed to be a one-stop shop for victims of abuse to get the help that they need.
There are a total of 19 organizations that are in this building. If you wish to pursue criminal charges or go the public safety route, such as pressing charges, wanting to have a criminal investigation, or just getting a protective order, the sheriff's office is downstairs with advocates. We have the police department in here with criminal investigators, as well as the prosecutor's office that can actually file and take your case.
Aside from legal services and protection, the Family Justice Center provides free access to counseling, health, and other resources.
The counseling is so important because without that clear understanding of what's going on, what this pattern and what this cycle is about, and why I'm even here and why I can't leave, it's more than likely going to continue. There are then other governmental agencies such as the Department of Social Services. The health department is also here. They do HIV testing. Then we have an array of community-based organizations that deal exclusively with victims of domestic violence and or sexual assault and human trafficking.
Offering support to children being raised in abusive households is another key component.
I look at children as the silent victims in these situations. The effects of witnessing abuse are just tremendous, the impact that it has on the child.
Since opening its doors, officials say the center has not received much foot traffic, but plans to get the word out to residents are well underway.
I think one of the challenges for the Family Justice Center is just letting people know that we're here.
We're new, and so that's been one of our initial struggles, which is to be expected, getting the word out. We have print materials that have been widely distributed in the courthouses. The varying partnering organizations that are here have also taken our literature back.
And so we're looking forward to having more and more people make use of that facility. And but they are prepared to do great work. And as the people come, we'll give them those services.
Well, we have spoken about the resources for victims, but what about help for the abusers? When we return, we'll tell you about a program for those who are incarcerated on domestic violence charges and what's being done to help them.
Everywhere that we go, he makes people laugh and makes people smile, and I feel like I have that quality.
He's the one who always takes me fishing. I watch golf with him. And
I watch him cook, because when I grow up, I want to be a cook too.
We have the same faces like this.
Dad is the one, when you fall, that picks you up.
That unconditional sense of presence and reassurance is really what makes him my father.
They are serving time for a multitude of reasons, and while incarcerated, these men and women have selected to take part in a program aimed at helping them change the abusive behaviors that may have gotten them behind bars in the first place.
The day we visited the jail, about 50 people were graduating from the domestic violence and anger management class that they offer there. Andre Johnson was one of them.
I feel very grateful to have the opportunity to get this award. I've never completed many things in my life, and to see it all the way through, I feel pretty good.
He and others accused of assault and similar offenses sign up for the 6-week course. It's meant to give them tools to work through their problems instead of raising their fist.
I learned a lot of key tools that he have us to put in our toolbox to avoid the conflict. And one of the ways to avoid it is to listen and to be open-minded.
Especially in the faith community, many of these churches, for example, have wonderful programming for young men, and there are others too, Men Aiming Higher.
Prince George's County State's Attorney Angela Alsobrooks says treating the abuser is an important part of addressing domestic violence.
That as a community, we talk a lot about anger management, but what we have not talked about is how to resolve anger. And so if we just teach people to manage it, to suppress it, to keep it in, at some point it really does come out in violent and in awful ways. But we have to shift our focus from just managing anger and disappointment and the inability to resolve conflict and talk about how to resolve.
It's basically to terminate the cycle of violence.
Instructor John Davidson says this sort of program is key to helping them live healthy and productive lives.
They talk it, then they walk it, and then it's a honeymoon stage, right? If they can stop that and learn how to take a time out, learn how to control the anger and alcohol, and remember that first-degree assault in this county is no more than 25 years. And second-degree assault is 5 to 10 years, plus $2,500 fine. When they understand that, alcohol and drugs, and the sentence behind domestic violence, that's what I want them to get.
When the love was gone, feel like I had nobody.
So after a celebration filled with poetry
just again.
and prayer,
the Lord watches over those.
Johnson and the others got their certificates and walked proudly with high hopes for the future.
So it's the first non-judgmental environment I've ever been in where I can talk about the abuse that I've suffered myself and the abuse that I've inflicted on others. So it can be nothing but beneficial to me in the end.
What are the steps you need to take to get out of an abusive relationship? Find out when we return.
My son has been drinking, and I think he's using drugs.
I just feel so ugly. I don't want anybody to see me.
I'm so sad all the time. I can barely get out of bed.
I just needed to talk to someone because I miss him so much.
Stand strong. No matter what you're going through, there is hope at the end of the line.
Focus on the family. How can we help?
Do you know of a good internet filter I can use to protect my kids when they're online?
I'm calling because my son's music is it's disturbing. It's dark and angry, and I'm just concerned.
Could you pray with me? My sister, she has to get her appendix taken out, and I'm really worried.
So what do you think? When should I start talking to my kids about sex?
Stand strong. No matter what you're going through, there is hope at the end of the line.
Focus on the family. How can we help?
It is no secret that there are several barriers that make it difficult for a victim to leave an abusive relationship, but it is not impossible. As our experts and survivors tell us, having a well-thought-out strategy to leave is paramount.
I never want to tell somebody they have to leave an abusive situation because that is a very dangerous time.
Many of the women who we have seen who were killed are killed when they try to leave. This means we need a safety plan.
Family Crisis Center, we do something that's called safety planning. If you call our hotline and you're in that position, maybe today is not the day you leave. We might plan that with you for 30 days out. Maybe the kids are going back to school and that's the only time you can leave the house. So we might walk you through how you can get the kids from school, secure all the vital documents, open up another bank account, open up a separate email account, store some clothes at a friend's or relative's house that they know nothing about. These are some really critical steps that people need to start to plan their exit.
Experts say friends and family need to respect that not all domestic violence victims want to end their relationships.
The question is, well, why would she stay? You know, she must like it or she must want that to happen. No one wants or deserves to be abused. Unfortunately, it's a situation that once you're there, it's very difficult to get out. I just caution people to not judge when they find out or learn that someone has been in an abusive relationship. If anything, do the opposite. Just reach out and ask them if there's anything you can do to help.
Some local government officials are working with various organizations and the faith-based community to help counsel women and men on partner abuse.
I have a good number of women who have come before me in court who have been injured. And these women say, I'm here to rescind my protection because I'm going to meet with my pastor this week. And that gave me the idea that I needed to talk to their pastors too. And so we went out to the faith community and we have partnered with them in a way that has been just marvelous. They have responded so well and allowed us to come in and train pastors and the ministerial staffs as to how to interface with members of their congregation, how to recognize certain signs.
Whether you decide to stay or leave, survivors say it's important to speak out on domestic violence.
You have to speak out. You cannot keep this silent. The longer you keep the darkness and you protect it in silence, it'll never end.
Say something. Say something. Get help. I know from a previous domestic situation that I was involved in, it's fear that paralyzes people, and you don't know where to go, who can I talk to, is he gonna find me, is he gonna hurt my family? Don't worry about the fear. Reach out and say something, because it could save your life and someone else's as well.
We'd like to thank you for watching our domestic violence special. We hope that you've learned how to break the cycle of abuse and will share this information with others. From all of us here at CTV News, I'm Denise Douglas. Take care of yourselves and your loved ones.
Hey, son, when you get a minute, I mean, when you're ready. We need to talk?
Hey, Dad, who are you talking to?
Oh, I don't know what you're talking about. I wasn't talking to anyone.
Not sure how to talk to your teen? Call the Boys Town National Hotline. Our trained counselors are available 24/7 to help you find the words and the way to handle parenting issues, big or small. Call 800-448-3000 or visit parenting.org.
Here is my handle and here is my spout.
When I get all steamed up, then I shout.
Tip me over and pour me out. Oh.
It only takes a moment to make a moment.
Cheers.
Take time to be a dad today.
Don't worry, 74 people were picked before me in the NFL draft.
To fight childhood obesity, United Way and the NFL are helping kids play at least 60 minutes a day.
Okay, time for the team obstacle course. Yay!
What this place needs is more healthy kids. To get involved or donate, go to unitedway.org/play60.
Now I get it.
As parents, we all start with the best intentions to lay a solid foundation for our children. Whether they're toddlers or teens, it's our #1 goal. But parenting can be tough. Throughout their lives, kids can face a variety of problems, big and small, that threaten family stability. From bad behavior to bullying, from peer pressure to depression, from defiance to drugs. When a child is teetering on the edge and things start to fall apart, the Boys Town National Hotline can help you put the pieces back together. Our trained counselors are available 24/7 to listen, provide advice, and help put your family on solid ground. The Boys Town National Hotline, keeping your family safe, strong, and together. Call 800-448-3000 or visit boystown.org/parenting.